Our scripture reading for today is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this, and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you have." Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." May the Lord bless the reading and the hearing of his word.
Come before his presence with singing. Come before his presence with song. Know that the Lord is our God. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter in his gates with thanksgiving. Enter in his courts with praise. His loving kindness is everlasting. To all generations. Before the faithfulness of God and right shout joyous to the Lord. Come before his presence with singing. Come before his presence with song. Know that the Lord is our God. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. And all in things, let a rivers never stop in us. Let the mountains sing before the Lord. Pray for blessing and praise us for the earth. Come before his presence with singing. Come before his presence with song. Know that the Lord is our God. They are his people and the sheep of his pasture. For his his hearts with praise. His loving kindness is everlasting. Come before his presence with song. His presence with song.
So what comes to mind when I say the word tribe? What do you think of? Perhaps we think of Native American tribes, Cherokee, Sioux, Navajo, something like that, or maybe we think of sports teams that bear the name, image, or likeness of a Native American tribe, the Seminoles or the Braves or something like that. Or maybe because we're in church, you think, well, I need a biblical answer, so you think about the Old Testament tribes of Israel. But if these are the images that come to mind, you might be tempted to think, well, tribes, that's just this outmoded, outdated way of thinking about it belongs in a different age. It's a relic of the past. And you would be incredibly wrong, because tribes are alive and well in our world today. I love this quote from Matt Johnson. He says, people are not just social, we're tribal. It's kind of how we are wired, every single one of us. We are wired to be tribal. It's part of our evolutionary biology that's how we survived as a species, as we learn to travel together in packs, not just for protection, but for the sharing of information together and passing that information from generation to generation. It's how we've become what we've become. For whatever reason, tribes, think about all the different things that they do for us. Tribes give us a place of belonging and acceptance. They give us a sense of security. Tribes inform our values and our ethics. They help us understand what's right and what's wrong. And above all, tribes teach us who and what we can trust in the world. Now, every tribe has a set of markings, whether that's symbols or language they speak that help others in the tribe easily identify if you're with us or if you belong to some other tribe that's out there. Just to give you an example, and this is an example from the world of sports. And this is, let me just share, this is painful for me because my beloved team lost last night, but I still proudly claim to belong to the tribe of the Tennessee Volunteers. And it is a tribe. It has a set of symbols, in fact, a particular color, creamsicle orange, that if you see creamsicle orange, that's UT's color. We have, of course, the symbol, the logo. We have traditions, the power T, Vol Navy, and above all, we have a song, good old Rocky Top. If you ever go to a game in Nayland, you're going to hear sung loudly and proudly 50 plus times. It's good to be a Vol, right? And so that's, and yes, even suffering a victory last night, I am still very proudly a Tennessee Vol, because that's part of the fun of going to games. It's not just to watch your team win and lose, but it's to be in the presence of your tribe, to be connected to other people and suffering the highs and lows of cheering for your team. And this is how tribes function. They help you form this instant connection. If I see someone, a complete stranger, wearing a University of Tennessee T-shirt, or if I see on the back of their car a little UT logo or a vanity license plate with Tennessee on there, I feel an instant connection with them. I don't know them from Adam, and yet, hey, we're part of the same tribe. That's how tribes function. And anything can be a tribe. It could be a team you root for. It can be a university you went to. It can be a place where you live, a church you attend, a club you participate in, a country or nationality. It can even be the political party you vote for. Because political parties function very much like tribes. They have a they have a certain set of symbols and a certain lingo that instantly when you're interacting with someone what tribe they might belong to, whether it's the T-shirts they're wearing and the yard signs in front of their house, or whether it's the lingo they use, because there is lingo for both the right and the left, and you can tell by listening to someone if what news sources they're watching and how the language is spoken. Pretty quickly if this is a person of the same tribe that I am. And political parties function like tribes. They give us a sense of belonging and security. They also become a filter through which we understand the world, where we get our news, who we can trust, and above all, they teach us what our values are, what's worth fighting for, what's right and wrong in the world. And I want to be really clear. It is not it's okay to be part of a political party or any other tribe, because we can't help it. Every single one of us, we're wired to belong somewhere. We're wired to find our source and our identity, our security somewhere. Every single one of us is seeking out a tribe. We can't help it. There's nothing wrong with being part of a tribe. The problem enters in how we regard those who belong to other tribes. Just as we're hardwired to find love and security in our tribe, we're also hardwired to be suspicious to those who belong to other tribes. Let me give you an example again from the realm of sports. I'm a Tennessee fan, and so whenever I hear someone say, "Roll Tide," I throw up a little bit in my mouth, like it's like when I come across someone who is like big Bama, like, the Crimson and all that stuff, especially if they're obnoxious about it, I can't help it. I make a judgment about their character. Like whether I know them or not, I just think to myself, how can you cheer for that team? How can you dress that way? How can you like Nick Saban? Like I go all this down this list. And if that's true in the realm of sports, well, then how much more so is it true in the realm of politics? That when we bump up against people who belong to a different party or hold different values, that we make judgments about their character. We say, how can you vote for him? How can you believe in that? We are automatically suspicious of news, of information, of people who come from different sources, belong to different tribes, especially if we perceive those sources, those tribes, to be in competition with our own values, our own hopes, our own aims. So I read a book a handful of years ago that I just loved called The Power of Us by Jay Bavel and Dominic Packer. And it's a great book about social identity, and it's not all about politics, but they have a handful of chapters about how political identities are becoming so entrenched in today's world. And they make this comment. They say people now place greater emphasis on political identities than they used to, with effects on many aspects of their lives, from romance to how they project themselves on social media. And so they analyze all these social trends. And here's just three of the stats they share. First, they say people nowadays are more likely to describe themselves by political affiliation than by religious affiliation. Secondly, people are less likely to spend time with family or with friends if they disagree politically. And then this last one kind of got me. It says people are more likely today to date someone of a different race and ethnicity rather than to date someone of a different political party. We're just getting so polarized and separated from one another. And of course, as you might imagine, social media is like pouring gasoline on this tribalism, on this division that we all face. In today's world, there are 4 billion social media users. That's a lot, isn't it? And the average person, this is the average person in the US on social media, scrolls through 300 feet of content per day. That's the equivalent of scrolling from the top to the bottom of the Statue of Liberty inch by inch every day. And that's what the average social media user is doing. And what social media does, among many other things, and some of it's positive, I'm not going to bash it all, but one of the things social media does is it fills us with outrage. It increases outrage in those who use social media. And here's the way it works. Think about it. In your day-to-day life, as you're shopping, as you're going about running errands, living in your neighborhood, whatever you are, very few of us witness incidents that would produce outrage in us. I mean, rarely are we witnesses to seeing someone steal a purse or verbally abuse someone else. We just don't see that in our day-to-day. But on social media, you can see events like that happening multiple times per day, and the effect is produce outrage in you. And in fact, this is the way social media works, is the more outrage something produces, then the more we share, tweet, post it, send it out to others. So they did a study of what were the words, what are the most common words that are drivers of social media that predict whether something will be shared, posted, that it'll go viral. And they ended up coming up with a list of the top 15 what they called moral emotional words. And they're very particular about this moral emotion. They said when they're words that don't just express morality or emotion, but that combination of moral emotional is particularly powerful in social media. So here are the top 15 words. Just look at them. Attack, care, destroy, fight, hate, kill, murder, peace, safe, shame, terrorism, war, wrong. Now, they're not all bad. There's 3 good ones. But think about it. 12 out of 15 are outrage words. Words that produce a sense of outrage in us. And that's what we end up sharing. E.O. Wilson, who's the father of modern sociobiology, kind of the study of biodiversity in our world, he had this to say about human nature. He says, the real problem with humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. I want to be clear. The problem is not difference. It's not disagreement between people or even disagreement between tribes. That's not the problem. The problem is not disagreement or difference, it's hate. The way we turn against and demonize and hate those who disagree with us. In today's world, and you probably already know this, out-party hate, when it comes to politics, out-party hate has become a more powerful predictor of how people vote than in-party love. In other words, if you want to motivate people to vote in an election season, the way you do it is to fill people with outrage and then point them against the other party. Of course, we all know this. This is the world we live in. We're experiencing it in real time. So, what do we do about it? Well, it's not really a new problem. This issue of hate, this issue of tribalism, it goes back to the very beginning. It's, as I said, social media is kind of maybe pouring gasoline on it, but it existed even way back in Jesus' day. And so I take you to this story, the Good Samaritan, a story that we've all heard before, but I want you to listen to it today through that lens of tribes, okay? First, the lawyer approaches Jesus and says, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Good question. And Jesus turns it back on him and says, "Well, what do you think? What's written in the law? How do you read it?" And the teacher, the expert in the law, says, well, maybe he's heard Jesus preach on this before because he gives him the right answer. He says, well, first you have to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then you have to love your neighbor as yourself. And when Jesus hears this answer, he praises it and says, well done, that's the right answer. Do this and you will live. But then the lawyer goes one step further because he needs to justify himself. And he asks the all-important question, who is my neighbor? And when Jesus responds to this question, he doesn't answer it directly. He tells a story. And the story is all about tribes. The story begins with a man who's traveling without his tribe. He's on his own, going from Jerusalem to Jericho, which is a notoriously dangerous road that's very steep and lots of turns and twists where robbers could hide. And so sure enough, bandits besiege him, attack him, rob him, and leave him for dead. Shock, outrage. This is true crime. Everyone's leaning into this story that Jesus is telling. He says, along the road passed 2 people. First, a priest, and then a Levite. And these are the people who not only belong to the same tribe of Israel, but there's the specific tribes that were dedicated to God, dedicated towards following the law, towards teaching people how to honor God. If anyone should stop, it should be one of these 2 people. And yet they don't. In fact, they put distance between themselves and between the man who's been hurt. They cross over to the other side of the road, and they continue on their way. Again, more shock, more outrage. Except when you think about it, it probably shouldn't be all that shocking, because we betray each other within our own tribe all the time. Have you ever had the experience of being abandoned by your own tribe? Have you ever had the experience of your tribe turning on you because you dared to question how everyone else thought, because you criticized a leader that others loved, because you made a mistake, or perhaps because you failed to deliver for whatever reason? And maybe if you didn't have this experience personally, I bet you can think of someone, whether it's in the public sphere or someone in your own personal life, who has experienced this turning of the tribe, beating up on one who used to belong to them and then leaving them for dead. If you ever experienced it, it hurts. It hurts all the more because it comes from people you trusted, people who shaped who you are. It feels like a betrayal. Well, that's what happens in this story. And then the amazing shocker comes at the end, because the person who stops and the person who helps did not belong to the same tribe. In fact, Jesus says he was a Samaritan, a tribe that anyone among the nation of Israel would have looked down upon and spit upon, someone they regarded with contempt and disdain. And this is the man who stops. And I love what he does. The Bible says he draws near and he sees. And what does he see? He doesn't see someone who belongs to the other tribe. Instead, he sees someone of common humanity, someone deserving of compassion and help. And this is the kicker. He treats that person as if they belonged to the same tribe, as if it was a member of his own household. He goes over, above, and beyond in order to care for the man's wounds and to provide for all of his needs. He goes to the nth degree. Why? Because they shared in the same humanity, the same tribe. So Jesus asked the lawyer after, he says, which of the three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? And the expert in the law replied, well, the one who had mercy. And you can imagine this lawyer probably didn't want to give that answer. He didn't want to talk about a Samaritan being the one who was the neighbor. But Jesus told him, go and do likewise. I want to repeat it one more time. It is okay to belong to your tribe. Whatever your tribe is, whether it's a political party or a sports team or whatever, it is okay to belong to your tribe. It is not okay to hate someone from another tribe, because the leader of our tribe commanded us to love everyone and to see those, even those who belong to a different tribe, to see them not as enemy, but as neighbor. And so during this election season, if you feel enmity towards someone of another tribe, someone who holds a different political belief or a different religious belief than you, if you feel enmity towards them, that is a sign that you have placed your tribal allegiance above your allegiance to Christ. Because Christ commanded us, love everyone, even our enemies. And not only did he command us to do it, he showed us what it looked like by laying down his life on a cross for you and for me, and by praying even upon the cross for the forgiveness of those who persecuted him. And he says to us, go and do likewise. So over the next month, we're going to be talking about kindness. How do we practice kindness? What does it mean to practice kindness? As Kim said in the beginning, kindness comes from that same root word from which we get our word kin. It means family. When we practice kindness, it recognizes that there's more things that connect us than separate us. Kindness is the bridge. The bridge is all the differences between our tribes. Kindness is how we reflect the good news of Jesus Christ in the world. Kindness is how we share his light as he commanded us to do. In a few moments, we're going to have communion together, but I want to first invite Kim to come forward. and share with me a little bit about in this message, because Kim, as a therapist, always I find brings unique perspective to just about any topic I preach on. So, Kim, talk to us about kindness. Actually, start with you sent me an article before I went to Greece and Turkey, kind of like hey, read this while you're gone to help inform, and it really did help inform my sermon, but share with the others a little bit about this article you sent me.
Yeah, so I sent Dave an article written by two political science professors at a Midwestern university. I'm not exactly sure which one, but I'll send you the article if you want it. But what they talked about was how our political beliefs have become almost religious or religious-like, and that we've attached this moral ethic to our politics, and we not only don't want to be in communication or curious with people who have a different belief than us, but we actually consider their beliefs evil, not just wrong, right? So that's a big leap, I think. Yeah, and they had an interesting statistic in the article I thought was just fascinating about how doing this really distorts our perception of the other, whoever the other is. But they said that Republicans estimate that 32% of Democrats are LGBTQ, and Democrats estimate that 38% of Republicans earn over $250,000 a year. The real number of Democrats that are LGBTQ is 6%, and the real number of Republicans who earn over $250,000 a year is 2%. So those numbers are so distorted because we're not talking to each other anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So our political parties, like I said, they become filters to which we see and process information, but it can often distort the way we see others. And I just found that really powerful, that our politics and our political identities become are fused with our religious identities, because those are they're both so powerful, but also so core to who we are. So is there some good news?
Yeah, there is some good news. There is good news. So the good news is that when we practice kindness, we flood our brain with some good hormones and chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and those chemicals actually open up neural pathways that help us to be kind more, or more kind more often. And whether you're giving or receiving kindness, the same good vibe happens for you. So whether you're practicing being kind or receiving kindness from someone else, like our propensity to be kind increases.
So kindness is good for our health. This is part of what I hear you saying, but I'm also curious, if it does so many good things for us, then why aren't more of those 15 moral emotional words, why aren't more of them positive? What does the negative stuff do to our brain?
Yeah, well, the negative stuff does sort of an opposite thing. So it activates a different part of our brain, our amygdala, which is the part that says, what are you going to do to keep yourself safe, right? Are you going to fight? Are you going to flee? Are you going to freeze? Well, the rage is the fight response. And so that gets really turned up, which I call your lizard brain, which, lizards eat their young if they're too afraid or too hungry. So it turns off your ability to be reasonable. So when you're in your lizard brain, your ability to be kind is not accessible. We can't access it. All we can do is be more mad, right? And so the rage. And that probably gives some sort of dopamine hit too. So if you just want to be mad, it feels good to be mad about something.
Yeah. But there's a more positive benefits to practicing kindness. Yeah.
Rage does make you sick too, and kindness doesn't.
I was going to say, in the short term, it's it really does give you a hit, but over the long term, it's not good for your, it's not good for your soul.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this in relationship to, in relationship to the debate on immigration we're having as a country. Over the last few weeks, as many of you know, I do a lot of work with the Haitian community, and so there's been this whole conversation around Springfield, Ohio, and as I've watched it unfold, I've kind of realized that it's all designed to generate outrage. First it was to generate outrage on the right about how much pressure these immigrant, population is putting on the small town, and then after the presidential debate, it was outrage on the left about the racial xenophobic stereotypes of eating cats, and so we're like, but it was all like everyone was like feeling like it was like this diet of like or this outrage that people were having, but like the outrage doesn't make anything better. It wasn't actually motivating people to kindness, to compassion, to do something good about the situation. It was just driving clicks and maybe driving votes. I don't know, but like, I think kindness is what pulls us to our better selves. And, and I would say to anyone who, if you felt outrage around this issue, I felt some of that outrage too, but like, you can do something better with it. Like you can choose to what you feed and come some Sunday and like experience the kindness and the warmth and the graciousness of the hospitality of the Haitian community. And that'll change the way it doesn't get rid of the problems, but it just changes the way you see them.
It really does. And there's also some research that says if we, writing checks is good, and we want to write checks to UMCOR because that's what they need right now. But that is just me tearing a check off, writing it, putting it in an envelope and sending it. Then my relationship with that thing is sort of done, right?
It doesn't transform you.
Yeah, not at all. But if I go to the east side with you and hang out with these people from Haiti for a couple of hours, and I do that over and over again, I start to build relationship with them. I start to understand and see them in a different way than I can from here if I go and be with them, because we're wired to be in relationship with each other. And so that's going to happen if I go with you.
Which is why I think it's so powerful what the Good Samaritan did. To me, that like I said this in my sermon, but like it's the drawing near and seeing.
Yeah.
When we draw near to someone, when we see them as a person, not just as a threat, it just changes everything when we can draw near and see people.
Yeah. We get to have our own experience, right? Instead of depending on someone else's.
Right. So one of the things we want to do this whole month is to, and to give people practical ways of sharing kindness. And one would be if you want to volunteer one Sunday with me, you can do that. But like, there's a lot of other resources. You want to tell people about?
I have some resources on our website. We have a bingo game for families so that you can play that with your children. But we also have a sheet, 30 acts of kindness in 30 days. And I noticed on here, participate in a blood drive is one of them. And that's happening right here on the 27th. Chalk a sidewalk with uplifting messages. How cool and how easy is that? So they don't have to be huge things. I said, when the person you see at Meijer is looking grumpy, say, hey, hi, I hope something wonderful happens to you today. Like, nobody can be mad because you say that to them, right?
Unless you say it in a really passive-aggressive way.
Yeah. Like I just did.
Like with some condescension, probably not good. But like, sincerely.
Yeah, I hope you have a great day today. Just say, write a thank you note and drop it off at your fire station or your police station. But there are lots of ways to spread kindness. And the more you spread it, the better you'll feel, and the better the people that you're kind to will feel.
So I would encourage you, like, go to the website, download this. You don't have to do all 30. That might be overwhelming, but just pick a few that are perhaps one step beyond your comfort zone, because as you try something new, you might be surprised what that opens up and what that produces, not just in you, but in those you share that kindness with. Yeah. So